The Washington Navy Yard, where President Obama is set to speak at a memorial service later today. 12 killed by a deranged Navy contractor. Here's ABC's Pierre Thomas.
Multiple shots fired, multiple people down.
For 6 weeks, Aaron Alexis exhibited increasingly bizarre behavior. In short, he was a ticking time bomb that no one seemed to detect. August 4th, a disturbing confrontation at Norfolk International Airport. Unprovoked, Alexis accuses an Alabama family of mocking him.
His behavior, something wasn't right with him mentally.
Airport security intervened, but sent everyone on their way. No more questions asked. August 7th, only 3 days later in Newport, Rhode Island, Alexis tells police that he's hearing voices and under constant surveillance. What's more, he said, his tormentors are bombarding him with a microwave machine. Newport authorities warned Naval Station Police about the strange behavior, but the tale was never passed up the chain of command.
There should have been some kind of mental health assessment done in order to determine the severity of these hallucinations.
August 23rd, Alexis goes to a VA hospital in Rhode Island and another here in Washington on August 28th, complaining of insomnia. On both occasions, they give him sleeping medication and ask if he's a danger to himself or others. He says no. They take him at his word. And last Monday, Alexis goes to work at the Navy Yard, only to explode in an episode of wanton violence. For This Week, Pierre Thomas, ABC News, Washington.
General Peter Chiarelli joins us again, along with Mark Barden, who lost his 7-year-old son, Daniel, at Newtown Sandy Hook School. Mark is now a member of the grassroots group Sandy Hook Promise, and ABC's chief medical editor, Dr. Richard Besser. I want to start as we sit here in the shadow of the Navy Yard in the very building where 12 people lost their lives earlier this week with you, Dr. Besser. You call this, when we were talking a little earlier, a predictable surprise, and yet nothing has been done.
Yeah, I mean, in public health, there's this term predictable surprise. It's something that was totally foreseeable, but when it happens, we act like, how could this have happened? We're surprised by that. But events like this are preventable if you understand what the root causes are. But as a nation, we're not taking those steps to really understand that. So we're going to see this again and again and again.
Mark, I know sitting here has to be somewhat emotional for you, seeing another mass shooting. The reaction of the country, the reaction of the media, even the reaction of the president seemed so different.
It does, and I would hope that we are not reaching a place of complacency, that we can't accept this as part of our culture. There's, with Sandy Hook Promise and just my own personal position, there are so many things that we can do, and we will continue to work in a holistic manner on a lot of issues to try to address this.
Sandy Hook Promise certainly trying to do those things.
Absolutely.
General Chiarelli, we should say that you dealt as Vice Chief of Staff of the Army with mental health issues all the time, the terrible epidemic of suicide. One of the things I know you tried to do is try to get commanders to tell people who are having mental health issues or post-traumatic stress to remove themselves from the weapons, from their personal weapons. And you got pushback on that.
Well, we did, but Congress has fixed that by taking the language out of the bill that made it impossible for us to implement what we were trying to do. Admiral Mike Mullen, the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, had read a lot of the literature that indicated that if you just recommended to a person who was at risk or at high risk for suicide, that you separate yourself from your personal weapon, suicide rates go down so far. And he recommended to the services that we implement that. There was language in a National Defense Authorization Bill that didn't allow us to collect that kind of information on soldiers. Just last year, Congress corrected that. But just think what it would mean if we could take that and apply that to the 38,000 suicides that are committed in this country every single year.
And you are still dealing with mental health issues with your organization, One Mind, that is doing a lot of research into the brain. I'd like all of you to talk about what really has to happen here. How do you tackle this as a nation?
I mean, the CDC back in the 1980s had a very robust program that was looking at gun violence, looking at issues of mental health. What are the drivers of gun violence? Then around 1990, the Congress, at the behest of NRA, cut off that funding. And here we are 25 years later when we still don't have the answers of what are the best interventions to stop this problem. You know, after Sandy Hook...
And how do you even approach the problem? I mean, the diagnosis, the treatment, all of that doesn't seem very concrete.
It's not. I mean, diagnostics are horrible in this particular area. If you take post-traumatic stress, in DSM-4, which is a psychiatric manual used to go ahead and provide a diagnosis, you basically ask a person 17 questions. There are no blood biomarkers, there's no x-ray, there are no other kinds of tests except you ask a person questions, and based on their answers, you make a determination on whether or not they have post-traumatic stress or not. We've got to get beyond that.
Well, we also have to get to the point where people have access to services. As bad as the tests are, if you look at the provision of mental health services and how hard it is for people who have a problem to get in and be seen, I mean, one of the things about health reform is to make sure that mental health issues are treated in the same way as physical problems. That's, I mean, I'm sure that that's going to be part of the solution here.
And not only do they have to get in to be seen, but then their insurance companies have to provide the coverage necessary to get them the treatment that they need. I ran into problems in the military with certain accepted treatments for different mental health issues not being accepted by the insurance companies.
And then they'd go to the VA and get different treatment. Mark, you were going to jump in there.
I was just going to say, I think early intervention is a critical component to this, and now, you know, we applaud the efforts of Senators Ayotte and Begich for pulling this bill out, you know, the one from Harkin-Alexander mental health bill that passed 95-2 in the Senate in April. They want to bring that out as a standalone bill. And our Senator Richard Blumenthal supports that. He said this is a good place to start with a common ground where we can all kind of agree on this. And there are a lot of things in that bill that we support as far as identifying children that are at risk, training the teachers to be able to identify them, and hoping to get the services that they need at an early stage.
One thing when we look at the shooter from the Navy Yard is judgment. There's just judgment that was missing in all these people who came in contact with him.
You have to look at it from a systems point of view and look at the big problem of gun violence, of these mass killings, and say, what can we do to stop these?
I want to thank you all for being here. Sorry to cut you short. A great conversation.